What if I told you that these rocks hold a story about ambition, the devil, and a deadly mistake?
Have you ever seen these two figures frozen in stone standing guard above the sea? Just beyond Dawlish, along one of the most dramatic stretches of railway line in Britain, two towering stacks rise from the waves. They're known as the Parson and the Clerk. And according to legend, they were turned to stone by the devil himself. Today we're flying along this wild stretch of South Devon coast to uncover the truth behind the myth. We're right here between Dawlish and Teignmouth, where the railway hugs the cliffs and the sea crashes against these striking red sandstone rocks. If you've ever watched our Coast Cam's live cameras, you'll know this stretch well. Trains threading through the cliffs and waves, nature and engineering side by side. But long before Brunel's railway, this coastline had a darker story. There are many versions of this legend told along the South Devon coast, but this one feels especially fitting for this place. Centuries ago, the Bishop of Exeter became ill and travelled to Dawlish to restore his health in the sea air. A local priest saw an opportunity. If the bishop died, the priest hoped he might succeed him. So the priest and his clerk began making regular journeys across the moors and along the coast to check the bishop's condition. One night, in a violent storm, whilst crossing Haldon, they lost their way completely. Rain lashed the land, the wind howled across the open ground. They were miles from the proper path. The priest, frustrated and angry, turned on his poor clerk and shouted, "I would rather have the devil himself than you for a guide." And at that very moment, a horseman appeared out of the storm. He calmly offered to guide them. Grateful for the help, the priest and the clerk followed him. After travelling some miles through the darkness, they arrived at this magnificent mansion, brilliantly lit and warm against the storm. Their mysterious guide invited them inside. There they were, treated to a lavish feast, fine wine and rich hospitality. Then in the middle of the celebration, news arrived. The Bishop of Exeter was dead. The priest could barely contain his excitement. His chance for promotion had finally arrived. Eager to leave at once, the priest prepared his horse. But something strange happened. The horses refused to move. Angry, the priest lashed them with his whip and dug his spurs in, shouting, "Devil take the brutes!" At that moment, their guide turned towards him, smiled and replied, "Thank you, sir." With that he cried, "Gee up!" The horses bolted forward, galloping straight towards the cliff edge above the sea. The priest and his clerk were thrown into the darkness below, and the devil turned them both to stone. The taller stack became known as the Parson, and the smaller beside it, the Clerk. And to this day, they stand here between Dawlish and Teignmouth, facing the sea forever. Monuments to greed, ambition, and a wish that should never have been spoken. Now, of course, there's another explanation. These cliffs are made from red sandstone laid over 250 million years ago during the Triassic period, back when this part of Devon was more like a desert than a seaside town. Wind, rain, salt and relentless wave action curved out the weaker sections of rock, leaving these hard pillars behind. Nature sculpted them slowly and patiently. But here's the thing, when you see them rising from the sea in silhouette, especially at sunset, it's easy to understand why people believe something supernatural was at work. Just behind these stacks runs one of Britain's most iconic railway lines, engineered by Isambard Kingdom Brunel. Imagine Victorian passengers looking out of their carriage windows and seeing these stone figures staring back at them. You can almost hear the whispers in the compartment. "Those are the Parson and the Clerk, look, look." And for a man like my dad, a lifelong railway man, this stretch of coast would have been magic. Trains, sea, and the legend all in one frame. It's no wonder this coastline captures people's hearts. Today, thousands walk the southwest coast path near these cliffs. Most pass without knowing the story, but legends like this do something important. They anchor us to a place. They remind us that this coastline has always inspired awe, fear and wonder. The Parson and Clerk still stand between Dawlish and Teignmouth, not as a warning, not as punishment, but as a reminder that this coast has stories carved into it, just as surely as the sea carves the cliffs. Next time you're watching the trains from Dawlish or listening to the waves roll in, remember that just around the corner, two ancient figures are still keeping watch. But here's something you don't fully appreciate until you get this close. From the cliff path, they look solid, permanent, unshakable. Up here, with the drone just meters away, you can see the truth. The cracks running through the sandstone, the deep undercuts at the base, the sections where the sea has quietly eaten away at the foundations. They don't look invincible, they look delicate, almost vulnerable. It's hard to believe these giants are held together by rock that has been fractured, soaked, frozen and battered for millions of years. And it makes you wonder, how much longer will they stand? Looking at them here with the waves working at the base every single day, I'd love to know what you think. How many years do you give them before one finally gives way and collapses into the sea? Please drop your guess in the comments, because one day, whether it's 10 years or 100, this coastline will look completely different, and we'll be able to say we saw them standing.